Welcome back to the AI Data Center Academy. If you walk into a boardroom today and say the words InfiniBand or Ethernet, you aren't just discussing technology. You are starting a religious war. For the last 10 years, the answer for high performance computing was simple. If you wanted speed, you bought InfiniBand. If you wanted cheap, you bought Ethernet. But in the era of AI factory, that simple logic is dead. We are seeing Ethernet fabrics running at 800 gigs with lossless performance that rival InfiniBand. We are seeing a massive consortium of tech giants teaming up to rewrite the Ethernet standard specifically to kill proprietary lock-in. And we are seeing NVIDIA fighting back with end-to-end proprietary stacks that promise performance simply because they own everything from the GPU to the switch. Over the next 15 minutes, we are stepping into the ring. We are going to deconstruct InfiniBand. We will look at its credit-based flow control and why it is naturally lossless. We are going to dissect Ethernet and RoCEv2. We will explain the operational tax you pay to make it work and the nightmare of PFC storms. And finally, we're going to look at the future, the Ultra Ethernet Consortium, UEC. We will explain how UET is replacing RoCE, introducing packet spraying and selective retransmission to finally solve the tail latency problem. This is section 4, the transport layer battleground. Pick a side. Let's start with the incumbent, the king of HPC, InfiniBand. InfiniBand is not just fast Ethernet, it is a completely different animal. It was designed from day one to be a cluster interconnect, not a LAN technology. Why does it dominate the training? Two reasons: native lossless operation and latency. Let's go deep on lossless. Ethernet is transmit and pray. I send a packet, and if you drop it, I'll find out later. InfiniBand uses credit-based flow control at the link layer. Here is how it works. Switch A wants to send a packet to switch B. Switch A cannot transmit until switch B gives it a credit. A credit basically says, I have exactly 64 KB of buffer space reserved for you right now. If switch B is congested, it stops sending credits. Switch A stops transmitting instantly. There are no dropped packets because a packet is never sent unless there is a guaranteed parking spot waiting for it. This hardware level mechanism allows InfiniBand to run at 95 to 99% utilization without dropping a single bit. It also delivers the lowest latency in the industry, typically 1 to 2 microseconds end to end. The Subnet Manager. InfiniBand also has a centralized brain called the Subnet Manager. It discovers the topology, calculates the routes, and pushes forwarding tables to every switch. It's software-defined networking before SDN was a buzzword. This makes bring up incredibly fast. You plug it in, the Subnet Manager sweeps the network, and it works. So, why isn't everyone using it? 3 reasons. The NVIDIA tax. Since NVIDIA bought Mellanox, they own the ecosystem. If you want the best performance, you are buying NVIDIA GPUs, NVIDIA NICs, and NVIDIA quantum switches. You are locked in. Next is the skill gap. InfiniBand engineers are rare. It uses different commands, different monitoring tools, different cabling rules. Your Cisco experts cannot troubleshoot an InfiniBand fabric. And it's an island. You need expensive gateways to talk to the rest of your Ethernet world, be it storage, management, or internet. Now, let's look at the challenger, Ethernet. Ethernet is ubiquitous. It is cheaper. It has massive multi-vendor supply chain, Arista, Cisco, Broadcom, Dell. But Ethernet was born to be lossy. It assumes buffers will overflow and TCP will fix it. To make Ethernet work for AI, we had to bolt on a technology called RoCEv2, which is RDMA over converged Ethernet. RoCE takes that high-speed memory transfer capability of the InfiniBand and encapsulates it in UDP/IP packets so it can run over standard switches. But remember, RDMA hates packet loss. If you drop a packet in RoCE, the entire flow stops. So, how do we make a lossy network lossless? We use two patches, PFC and ECN. Priority flow control. This allows a switch to send a pause frame to its neighbor. Stop sending traffic class 3. It's a red light. The problem? Head of line blocking and PFC storm. If a switch malfunctions and sends pause frame continuously, it can freeze the entire network. This is called a PFC storm. It has taken down entire cloud regions. Explicit congestion notification. This is the softer approach. The switch marks a packet, hey, I'm getting full. The receiver sees the mark and tells the sender to slow down. It's like a yellow light. Ease off the gas. The trade-off? Ethernet requires an operational tax. You don't just plug it in. You have to tune buffer thresholds. You have to configure PFC watchdogs. You have to monitor for storms. If you get it right, RoCEv2 delivers 90 to 95% of InfiniBand's performance for significantly less money. But if you get it wrong, you have a jittery, high latency mess. So we have a choice. Expensive and proprietary InfiniBand versus complex and fragile RoCEv2. The industry decided that neither option was good enough. Enter the Ultra Ethernet Consortium. Founded by AMD, Arista, Broadcom, Cisco, Meta, and Microsoft, their mission, kill InfiniBand, or rather build something better than InfiniBand on Open Ethernet. They are creating a new transport protocol, UET, Ultra Ethernet Transport. This is not just a speed upgrade. It is a fundamental rewrite of how Ethernet handles transport. Let's break down the three key innovations of UEC that you need to know. First, packet spraying. We talked about this in episode 2. ECMP hashing creates collision. UET introduces packet spraying at the transport layer. The sending NIC chops the message into packets and sprays them across all available paths simultaneously. The receiving NIC reorders them. Result, you get perfect load balancing across the fabric, maximizing bandwidth utilization without needing a centralized controller. Second, selective retransmission. In RoCEv2, if you lose packet 50 out of 100, the standard behavior is go back in. You have to resend packet 50, 51, 52, 53 all the way to 100. It's inefficient. It wastes bandwidth. It creates a massive latency spike. UET creates a modern, smart retransmission logic. I missed packet 50, just send me packet 50. Result, a packet drop becomes a tiny blip, not a disaster. This makes the network resilient to the occasional error, reducing the pressure to be perfectly lossless 100% of the time. And the third one, flexible congestion control. RoCE relies on DCQCN, which is rigid. UEC introduced advanced telemetry. The switch sends rich metadata to the NIC about exactly how congested it is. The NIC can adjust its transmission rate in microseconds, or receiver can govern the flow. Result, the network self-tunes traffic speed to match available capacity, preventing the buffers from ever filling up in the first place. So, where does this leave us today? 26? Let's look at the vendor landscape. NVIDIA is pushing the Spectrum-X platform. This is the answer to UEC. It's Ethernet, but optimized. It uses the Spectrum-4 switch and the Bluefield 3 SuperNIC. They are doing packet spraying, they are doing direct data placement, they are tuning RoCE to be lossless-ish. But it works best if you buy NVIDIA end-to-end. Broadcom and Arista are all in on UEC. Broadcom's Tomahawk 6 and Jericho 3 AI are built to support these open standards. They want to give you the freedom of mixing an AMD GPU with the Broadcom NIC and an Arista switch. Cisco is leveraging Silicon One. They are focusing on observability with Nexus Dashboard, giving you the visibility to debug those complex RoCE UEC interactions. Here is the architect's verdict. How do you choose? Scenario A, the money is no object. It's for a frontier model. If you're training GPT-5 and you have a budget of say $5 billion and you need it working yesterday, you probably still buy InfiniBand. It is proven, the libraries are optimized for it. It is safe, low risk, high cost choice. Scenario B, the enterprise tier 2 cloud. If you're building a flexible AI cloud or doing fine tuning and inference, you buy Ethernet, specifically 800 gig Ethernet with RoCEv2 today, migrating to UEC hardware as it ships. The cost savings, often 30 to 50% versus InfiniBand, and the operational familiarities for your team make it a pragmatic winner. The reality check. Ethernet is winning the war. InfiniBand will likely become a niche technology for the absolute highest end supercomputers. But for the mass market of AI, Ultra Ethernet is the inevitable future. So, you've chosen your protocol, InfiniBand, RoCEv2, or maybe you're betting on Ultra Ethernet. You've tuned your buffers, you've optimized your routing. The network is ready, right? Not quite, because the network doesn't decide how traffic moves. The application does. And in AI, the application logic lives in the communication library. Think of the protocol as the road. It is the asphalt. But the communication library, like NVIDIA's NCCL or AMD's RCCL, is the GPS. It decides if your data takes a direct route, a ring route, or a tree route. If your physical topology doesn't match the library's algorithm, you get a massive traffic jam. Let's establish where this software lives. You have PyTorch or TensorFlow at the top. The data scientists live here. You have InfiniBand or Ethernet at the bottom. We live here. PyTorch and TensorFlow communicate with underlying network hardware through a specialized layer of communication backends. These backends act as translator between the high-level framework commands like synchronized gradients and the low-level hardware protocol of the network interface cards. For NVIDIA's GPUs, this is NCCL, NVIDIA's Collective Communication Library. For AMD GPUs, this is RCCL, pronounced RCCL. For Azure and advanced tuning, we are seeing MSCCL from Microsoft. These libraries have one job: synchronization. They take the data from 10,000 GPUs, mix it together, and redistribute it. They don't just send packets randomly. They organize the GPUs into teams and execute specific plays. These plays are called collectives. All reduce, all to all. We spoke about them in episode 2. If you look at network traffic graph and see a massive spike that looks like a square wave, that's a collective operation hitting your fabric. So, how does the data flow to the network? Let's look into it. First is abstraction layer. You use high-level APIs like torch.distribute or tf.distribute. These APIs don't know about your NIC. They only know which tensors need to be shared. Next is collective operations. The framework issues collective commands such as all reduce or all gather. After that comes backend execution. The backend takes these commands and determines the most efficient path. For example, it might use GPU direct RDMA to move data directly from one GPU's memory to another machine's NIC, bypassing CPU to reduce latency. Then we come to the hardware. Finally, the backend talks to the physical network using standard or specialized protocols, TCP/IP or RoCE or InfiniBand. Now that we understand the flow of data, you understand how high the stakes are. Because here is the scary part. NCCL decides your network's fate in the first few seconds of boot time. It scans your PCI bus. It looks at your NICs. It builds a graph of your topology. If your cabling looks weird, or if a virtualization layer hides the true hardware, NCCL picks a bad path. It creates a hairpin and your performance tanks. So, how do we fix it? How do we take control back from the autopilot? We use environmental variables. These are the knobs you turn on the server to force the network behavior you want. I'm going to give you top 5 cheat codes for debugging AI network. Write these down. First one is the debug info. By default, NCCL is silent.
it fails silently. Turn this on, it will print the topology graph it detected. It will tell you, I see 8 GPUs, I see 4 NICs, I'm using ring algorithm. If it says I see 1 NIC, but you paid for 4, you have a cabling or PCI problem. Next is P2P disable. This forces NCCL to stop using NVLink and push all traffic over PCIe and the network. Why use it? If you suspect a bad NVLink cable is causing errors, use this. If performance stays the same, it's the network. If performance drops, NVLink was working. It's a binary isolation tool. Next is IBHCA. HCA stands for Host Channel Adapter, the NIC. Sometimes the server has management NIC and 4 high-speed NICs. NCCL might accidentally try to run your training job over a 1 gig management port. Use this variable to tell it exactly which lane to use. Next is topophile. If your network is complex, like a specific rail optimized design, NCCL's auto detection might fail. You can dump the topology to an XML file, fix it manually, and feed it back to NCCL. No, don't go that way. Go this way. This is the advantage, but it saves clusters. And the last one is algo command. You can force ring or tree. If you're seeing massive jitter with tree, force ring. It might be slower, but it's more stable. Stability often beats peak speed in AI. Now, NCCL is great, but it's a black box. It's proprietary to NVIDIA. What if you are on AMD? Or what if you want to write your own rules? Comes in RCCL. This is the clone. It works almost exactly like NCCL, but runs on Infinity Fabric. If you are building a MI300 cluster, you are using RCCL. The logic is the same, but the hardware backend is different. Another one is Microsoft MSCCL. This is the disruptor. Microsoft Azure realized that generic algorithms aren't good enough for their massive custom clusters. MSCCL allows you to program the collective. You can write code that says send chunk A to GPU 2 while simultaneously sending chunk B to GPU 3. It allows for synthesized algorithm that fit your specific cabling perfectly. If you are operating at hyperscale, programmable collective are the future. And finally, MPI and Gloo. These are the ancestors. MPI is for the supercomputing world. It's great for CPUs but slow for GPUs. Gloo is Meta's fallback library. If you see your training job fall back to Gloo, it means NCCL crashed. Gloo runs over TCP. It is robust, but it's slow. So, why did we spend an episode on software in a hardware class? Because performance is a full stack problem. You can buy the 800 gig switch, you can buy the H100 GPU, but if NCCL chooses a ring algorithm that crosses a congested spine link, your 800 gig switch is useless. The job of the AI network architect is not just to provide bandwidth, it is to provide observability and compatibility for these libraries. We have covered the workload, the topology, the anatomy, and the protocols. You now have the theoretical foundation of an AI network architect. You now know the language these machines speak. But a protocol is just a standard. It's a PDF document. It doesn't move a single electron until it is burnt into the silicon. And this is where the real performance variance happens. You can run RoCEv2 on a cheap switch and on an AI optimized switch and get completely different results. Why? Because of the ASIC. In our next episode, we are going to crack open the chassis and look at the silicon heart of the AI network. Thank you for joining the AI Data Center Academy. Like, share, and subscribe, and go build something massive.